Welcome to this CommuniZoom on dealing with stress. Actually, when I thought about it, I thought maybe this should be just dealing with stress and uncertainty and, you know, heartache. What I've chosen to do in this little brief half hour on dealing with stress, I hope that it's relevant for you and useful for you. For some of us, because we're in different places, it may or may not have the right kind of tone for you. So I'm just going to try and do my best to cover as many different kind of emotional tones that we are all in. Some people are doing fine, some people are heartbroken, some people are very, very worried and living with a lot of anxiety. Some people are managing to self-regulate and going for walks and all of that and taking it sort of in their stride. Other people may already be ill or recovering from illness. I was talking to somebody the other day recovering from illness. And so I'm just very aware that, you know, I'm not trying to be all sort of perky and positive in a way that doesn't fit for people. So bear that in mind. I do appreciate that people are going through some really, you know, terrible times of loss and fear and all of those kinds of things. However, I did want to sort of add some tools. You'll know some of this, and there are so many more, of course, in 25 minutes or whatever. There's not that much time, but I did want to share some, mainly for those people who've done personal development, done NLP. There'll be like reminders of things, but you know, we all like to be reminded of stuff. You know, I like to be reminded of things that, yeah, oh yes, there's that. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that for a while. Or yes, that's good. That lets me know I'm on the right kind of road. So let me also just quickly say that we did remake the resilience video, and that went out on our mailer this week at a slower tempo so that people could follow the exercises better if you wanted to. The second thing I wanted to say is that next week we're moving the time to 5 in the afternoon because we're going to bring Judith Delosia in for a lovely chat to say hello, see how she's getting on and what her thoughts are about this situation. And I know that you know, a lot of people in PPD, you know, we love her, and it'll be just fantastic to be able to see her. So, as I did last time, I want to say a little bit about NLP first, and just some of those, what we call the NLP presuppositions, which is what are we building, what are the foundational kind of ideas that we build our practice on. One of them is people are full of resources, that we have a lot of latent capacity and a lot of ability to, in the right types of circumstances, to release our creative potential into the world and into this situation. And I think that's really important for us to, when we get stuck, when we get down, when things are, you know, very difficult for us, that to somehow know that there's always more to you. You're always capable of more. And the thing is that the trick is, in a way, how to tap into that, how to set things up for ourselves so that that becomes available to us. It's always there. That potential is always there. It's just that we can't always, you know, tap into it. Then I think people are making the best choices. You're making the best choices. I'm making the best choices. Some days are better than others. Some meals I prepare are better than others. You know, sometimes I eat all my treats on the first day. I'm sure everybody is finding their way up and down, making the best choices you have, given the kind of way that you're thinking about it at any given time. We're all motivated by this idea of positive intention, this idea we're value-led, value-driven. Things make sense at the next level. And so looking at how we can live through our values and maybe create some some different ways of expressing our values that are maybe are more aligned with overall well-being and health and goodwill and kindness for us. And I think the last thing I'll just say is the map's not the territory. When we're talking about stress and stressful thoughts, it is just a map. It's not that there isn't any truth in it, but it isn't the same as reality. Our brains under this kind of stress state are going to predict and catastrophize much more than usual, actually. And so to have ways of being able to manage that and think about what's happening in our own subjective experience is going to be useful. It's not a panacea, it doesn't put everything right, but it starts to help to keep us more sane and grounded. Because basically, this is a sort of collective trauma that we're going through. And even though I can sort of say, well, let's do breathing exercises and let's do this and let's do that, there's no breathing exercise that's going to put this right, you know, or make it go away. And so I'm trying to get the right kind of balance when I'm thinking about it to be, you know, on the one hand, do what you need to do to get through this. There's no judgment, no shame, you know, and on the other hand, when you can, re-regulate on a personal level as much as you can, as often as you can, with the aim of staying as healthy as possible, of releasing your creative potential, of being of service to others, and of being ready to rebuild the world along more sustainable lines for the good of all. So it's like trying to find your own best balance. So in terms of stress, I've got some exercises and ideas and frameworks. I just want to talk a little bit about what so-called stress is. Obviously, if you're an NLP person, we think of stress from the meta model, which is our language model that overlaps a little bit with CBT, that that it's what we call a nominalization. It's like an abstract word that basically is a process. It's the process of stressing ourselves. So really there's no such thing as stress. We are somehow stressing ourselves, which is not to say that we take 100% responsibility for what's happening. We don't. We can't but help be influenced and activated by what's happening around us. Of course, we're going to be reactive and stress and be stressed and be stressing ourselves. So it's a kind of unspecified verb. It's an unspecified process. And you might think in lots of different ways. You might think maybe you're grieving, maybe you're fearful, maybe you're angry, you're worrying, about your health, or about the health of other people, about your business, about your mortgage, you know, all kinds of things. So, but to know that it is actually something that we're doing, and it's about our own thoughts and feelings. That's really what's happening, that we're generating a set of thoughts and feelings in this context. And our body is feeling it too. So our body is like contracting, our breathing is closing down. And it's quite good to know, although that all seems subjectively very true, that these are just, when I say just, they are thoughts and feelings. They're not necessarily reality. They may be related to some kind of reality, but they're not reality. The map's not the territory. These are projected kind of simulations. And we often know, because we have a lot of extra internal dialogue, and it has a lot of extra kind of rhythms and cadences that relate to feeling tight and constricted and upset. I always like that Richard Moss quote. Richard Moss, who's a sort of personal development, personal transformation teacher, who says something like, I've lost the quote, but he says something like, the only thing that really, that is the matter with us all, something like that, he doesn't say it that way, is that we believe our own thoughts and we're frightened of our own feelings. So in other words, our thoughts at those stress moments seem very believable to us, and we start to believe them. Whereas I think what's really helpful is to go, oh, that's a thought. This is the kind of practice of meditation as well, is it? To be able to sort of go, oh, thinking. Oh, now I'm thinking this. Oh, now I'm thinking that. So I don't fully just step into my thoughts and go, this is the reality. I'm able to have what we might call a meta comment on my own thoughts. And the same with my feelings. I go, these are feelings and this too shall pass. Easier said than done, of course, but also making friends with my feelings. I'm interested in the idea of being able to sit with this turmoil and uncertainty from a place of centeredness, and be able to be with my own fear and my own anger and anxiety in this situation, rather than trying to either fall into it and go into it like a survival program, or be able to, just sort of try and numb it out with, drink or drugs or TV or whatever. The way back generally in most of the research and practices around stress, from stress, is to reconnect to material reality. Almost whatever you can do to reconnect to what is going on in the here and now. So if you're making a cup of tea, this is very Zen, I know, but it's like realigning the internal dialogue with what you're actually doing. I'm turning on the tap, I'm filling the kettle, I'm putting the kettle on, I'm getting my tea bag. Whatever you want to say that brings your internal dialogue into alignment in the present moment. This is like the inner game of tennis, isn't it? The bounce hit points of the inner game of tennis. So bringing your breathing, bringing your attention into the material, concrete world and into the present moment, rather than spinning off into an unknown, uncertain future. Although we're going to have those thoughts. So how can we stay with that feeling of anxiety and difficulty? And obviously the royal key to all of this is to be able to stay centered and breathing. And there are particular kinds of breathing you can do. You can look them up online. Some people have like a 4 square breathing, which is you breathe in for 4 counts, you hold it for 4 counts, you breathe out for 4 counts, and you stay empty for 4 counts. Other people have got some different numbers. I've seen one where you breathe in for, I think it's 4, and you hold it for 7, and then you breathe out for 6 or something like that. You might want to find your own sequence that suits you, that when you do it, it begins to calm you down and bring you back into the everyday, here and now, present reality of your body, your living, breathing, in the moment body, where things are more manageable. So I think a lot of you know the crash state, coach state model from Robert Dilts. Again, I think it's a very useful model. Coach stands for centered, open, awareness with attention, attention with awareness, connected to self, and to be able to hold and be hospitable to difficult feelings. And the crash stands for contracted, you feel that in our bodies, contracted, reactive, we're easily kind of triggered and upset. Analysis paralysis, where we've got a lot of internal dialogue looping around, analysis paralysis. What's the C? I've forgotten what the C is. The last C, contracted, reactive, analysis paralysis, something, and then hurting and hitting. There's another C, it'll come into my mind in a moment. It's separate. You've lost connection with yourself. And so we can crash into that fight, flight, freeze kind of mode. So coming back into the present moment, knowing that we don't need to believe our thoughts. We can think about our thoughts. We can stay more steady in the face of our thoughts. We can quieten down our internal dialogue. So then I wanted just for this, you know, I think that we can look at how to start thinking about goals, again, from an NLP point of view, being goal-oriented and being more focused on what do we want to create? What do we want to make happen more? And I thought it might be interesting to do this with Robert Dilts's logical levels model. So for those of you that don't know it, it's a model that says there's a level of environment, there's the where and the when and with whom level. There's the next level, which is the level of behavior. What are you doing? What are you saying in that environment? Then the next level is capability. You know, what are your, how are you thinking? How are you feeling? How are you performing? What are the kind of skills and states that you have? The next level is beliefs and values. How are you making sense and meaning making in your world? What sort of rules and structures are you developing to make sense of your life and to project forwards and set your expectations for the future? Who are you? The level of identity. What is your role? Maybe even your mission in this crisis. And what is your sort of vision? What can come from this? And I've got a little quote from the writer, the Indian writer, actually Arundhati Roy. And this may not be to everybody's taste, but I think it's a really interesting one in terms of this, you know, post-pandemic, you know, the idea of the post-pandemic, placing our attention further into the future. So we've been placing our attention in the absolute immediate here and now present for our well-being. Now here's a chance to do a little bit of thinking ahead. She has this quote, she says, historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. Historically, pandemics have forced humans to break with the past and imagine their world anew. This is no different. It is a portal. It's a gateway between one world and the next. We can choose to walk through it, dragging the carcasses of our prejudice and hatred, our avarice, our data banks and dead ideas, our dead rivers and smoky skies behind us. We can choose that. Or, she says, we can walk through lightly, with little baggage, ready to imagine another world and ready to fight for it. So I really like that in terms of thinking about, you know, how to start really thinking and projecting through thinking about goals and outcomes and purpose. Like, what do we want to be part of making happen? And I think there's a top down and the logical levels approach, and I think there's a bottom up, and they definitely meet in the middle. So I think the top down is very much about what's your vision of the world that we, you know, if we walk through this portal, what's your vision of the world we want to create and that we want to belong to and we want to be welcoming in, and that has, you know, is sustainable, and, you know, we're able, because this is a moment that we've got to actually think about this. Is there another kind of society and world that we want to be part of creating in a sort of post-pandemic way that we can make a start with that right now? And then I think at the identity level, I think this is a very interesting question, which you could say this comes from the hero's journey kind of work. You know, on the hero's journey, it's like there's a calling. In this situation that we're all in, what are we being called to somehow step up and 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 do and be part of and create? Is there a calling in this situation for you where you go, there's something that's just about my life right now that is something that could come out of this for myself, and that I can contribute, and that would be a mission for me or a kind of new role for me? So I think those are big questions and help us to focus in another place, which is what we want to be able to create anew. Then I think the question of values. What are your core values? What really matters to you? You know, what really matters? What's really important to you? How can you be living from those values, even in this very, very difficult, as I say, pretty much situation of collective trauma for all of us? How can we still be living from our values and from what is really meaning for us, and to be living even partially something of our best selves and our best lives? And can we, you know, find ways to express our values, whatever they may be, even in very different kinds of ways than we would normally do? So that's more of a kind of, and then how do the values like contribute to the calling? You know, and how does the calling contribute to this post-pandemic kind of world that we can start to create right now? Then I think at the logical levels, like capabilities. Are there some capabilities that you can be using this time to, you know, acquire or to, you know, strengthen or enhance? I know some people are learning new things about technology, or learning new ways of communicating with technology, learning new ways of day by day kind of keeping your spirits going, or nursing others, or caring for others, or managing, you know, managing your own, you know, grief and heartbreak, managing your love for others. So maybe there are some new capabilities. Are there some new behaviors, which is just very, very day to day in the here and now? Are there some things I think last time I said, are there some things you could be doing a bit more of? Are there some things you could do a bit less of? You know, like just finding, like keep on finding every day, what can I kind of move around at the behavioral level? And then I think at the level of environment, in my environment, how can I make my environment, you know, the best environment that I can for me and for others that I'm meeting or sharing it with, so that it supports me to stay healthy, to stay reasonably good-hearted and good-spirited through this. And so then you can see there's the level of environment can support us into possibly some new kinds of extended, flexed kinds of behaviors, into some new capabilities potentially, or strengthen the ones that we have and enhance the ones that we have. Really, you know, supported and supporting our values, our meaning making, what's really important to us, what's really sacred and special to us about how we live our lives as human beings, how we sustain our health and the health and well-being of others. Is there some kind of calling or special role? You have your special gifts and talents that now is maybe a time when they can get expressed, and you can bring those out into the world in some altogether new hero's journey kind of way for you. And then how do we want to go through this kind of portal? You know, it's like this portal to, the potential is all there. The potential is all here for us to work with. How do we want to start imagining, even now, the type of world that we could bring into being in many, many, many different ways? It's certainly there as a potential of this moment. So creating goals at every level really was my idea for this. So there's just a small little package. There's lots to say about stress. There's lots of exercises and activities we could be doing. I'm sure that you're all working and managing just the best way that you know how. And you're doing everything that, everything that you know to make these days and weeks kind of be as positive and as fulfilling as they can be for you, given that, sometimes everyone's going to have like not good days, or times when they can't look after themselves, or times when they're crying and sad. You know, that's, I think, is just the reality of this situation. However, when you can, when it's possible, you know, be kind to yourself and others, be good-hearted with yourself and others, do everything you can to stay more centered and in the concrete material world, be focused on what you can create and make better for yourself and others in the here and now. And so I hope that's kind of helpful. That's helpful for people. And I'm with you in all of these. These are the things I'm doing as well. Centering again and again, breathing out, calming down my nervous system, thinking when and how I can be kind and helpful to myself and to others. So dealing with stress and uncertainty and heartbreak, there's so much more to say. But so there we are for today. I wish you all the very, very best. You know, it's just a very difficult time for everybody. I'm sending my love and my best wishes to everyone. It's so good to see you. Keep well if you can, keep healthy, keep as happy as you can. And hopefully I'll see you again next Thursday at 5 with Judy. And so I'll say goodbye for now, but I'll hang around for a bit and chit chat for a bit if anybody wants to.